right, so that was me playing Happy Birthday, improvising around the melody of Happy Birthday, sort of a Charlie Christian style, and that's our end goal in this lesson, is to be able to do that. But before we can do that, we have to know how to play the melody straight. So you have to know how to, just play it the way you would sing it, in other words. No frills, just the basic melody. And before you can do that, you have to know the boundaries that you're working within, and that's the major scale. So we're going to be covering all of that. What the major scale is, how you play it all over the neck, then how do you find a basic melody within that major scale, and then how do you improvise and go to that level 3, if you want to think of it that way. So a lot of material to cover. I'm excited for those of you that are interested in this topic, because I think this is going to give you just about everything you need to be able to do it. All right, so I have all of the extra materials for this lesson, the PDF handout, the MP3 jam tracks, the tablature, everything that we're going to be talking about is available at activemelody.com. Go to the weekly lessons page and do a search for EP390. All right, so step 1, we're going to talk about the major scale and how you play it all over the neck. Now, I did cover this in EP374. That was a modes 2-part series that I did several months ago, and I talked about the G major scale and how you can play it all over the neck. We're going to use that same scale, and actually I've got the PDF handout from that lesson. I've got it attached to this week's lesson, so you can use that as a visual reminder of everything we're about to talk about. But instead of just going through the scale, like this, which is fine, it's one way to do it, I thought it would be more fun to have a song to be able to play with. So that's what I have in addition to the Happy Birthday song that we're going to be playing. We're going to be playing this major scale song, which allows you to go through the entire major scale. This is what it sounds like. So I have the tablature and the jam track for that, and I have 2 versions of the jam track. I have a slower version as well, and that is really all designed to help you play that major scale all over the neck, and just sort of a fun way to do it, as opposed to just sitting and drilling yourself without any sort of context. I thought that would be kind of fun. And if you notice, this is just a little sidebar, but if you notice in the song, the chords were changing. I wasn't just playing a G chord over and over again. I was playing G, I was playing a D, I was playing a C, and the G major scale worked over all of those chords. And that's all covered in that lesson, that EP 374 and 375, the modes thing. So that's just because we're changing the chord, which means we're changing the mode and all of that. But I'm not going to get into that for this week. All right, so I'm going to assume that you at least understand the major scale, even if you can't play that entire exercise yet. You understand it fundamentally. Let me give you this one analogy that I heard Tim Pierce make on his channel. This was a while ago. He said this, and Tim is great, by the way. If you haven't checked him out, you should check him out. He's really good. But he mentioned the neck being like a train line, and he said that when he improvises, somebody asked him, when you improvise, like, how do you know where to play on the neck? And he said, well, I kind of think of the neck as a train line, and I have all these stops that I can get off. And I thought that's a perfect analogy. And so the reason I'm even mentioning that is, if I look at the train line here and I look at the first stop, we'll assume that's the first stop, that E chord shape, right? So I'm still thinking about the cage system. I'm picturing that chord shape. I can see the major scale right there in 2 octaves, in fact. I can also see the minor pentatonic scale pattern 1 in that same stop. So light bulbs just went off for some of you. Think about what's going on there. In this one area, in this one zip code right here, I've got major scale. I've got minor pentatonic scale. I've got major pentatonic scale pattern 2. Right? I've got lots of options right here in this one area. Even if I don't go anywhere else, I can stay in this one neighborhood and I can make a very meaningful solo. And I'm only mentioning that because, it's relevant to this lesson, but it's also, I see a lot of you, or I hear a lot of you that are frustrated, and I get this impression that you're feeling like you need to be going all over the place and you're not sure where to go. I'm saying that too because I used to feel that way. I used to think, oh God, I just did something here, I better go up here, and well, now I've done something here. So you're always just moving around. But the good players, if you watch them, they hang out in a place and they milk it, and then they might move up a little and then they might go back. That's a more sophisticated way of playing. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was relevant in this lesson. And so thinking of those chord stops, if I go to the next stop, and the stops are the cage system, by the way. So that first stop would be the E shape, the next stop would be the D shape. So if I came up to stop number 2, if we're numbering them, I was up here, I could play, there's the major scale. And this is why it's important to learn that major scale all over the neck with that lesson, that exercise that I gave you. I can do it very quickly without thinking about it. So I know I've got that major scale there, so I can improvise with that. I can also throw in the minor pentatonic scale pattern too. It's in that same neighborhood. So you start to see the neck in a very different way when you hang out in neighborhoods and you have this intimate relationship with each of those neighborhoods. Then you really know what's going on. If you want to see me do a deep dive in each of these neighborhoods or zip codes, we'd have to call it something like that, leave a comment and let me know. I don't know, this may be like some of you are probably saying, all right, dude, I got it. I don't need any more. But I could do a deep dive in each one of those. I could even be like a 5-part series or something. I don't know. So let me know. All right, so we've got the major scale, and we've got it in 5 positions on the neck, which is awesome. And you can do this in any key now. Now, hopefully you understand, at least with the chord shapes and the cage thing, how you can easily transpose this. And actually, as an added bonus, I did throw in an extra jam track in the key of A, so that you could just take everything if you want. It's just a practice thing. But I took that same song that we were using to practice the G major scale, and I transposed it to A. So you could practice playing the A major scale if you want. All right, so now that I know the major scale and all these different positions, I have my boundaries that I'm working within. So now I'm ready to play Happy Birthday, or at least find it using my ear. Now this is where you're going to have to use your ear, but you can do this. Everybody can do this. You're just going to have to, some of you are going to have to work a little harder. But I know that I'm going to play it in the key of G, so I have to find that first note. So if I were to sing that, there's the note that I'm trying to find, right? You're going to have to, you could sing it if that helps you. Or you can walk through the major scale. There's the note, right? So you can play it in any octave that you want. Like, let's say I started with this, I could go. Now these notes here are in that major scale. So that's in all that material that you've gone through. So we've got, right? And then it repeats that part. Now watch what happens here. You're going to have to come all the way up here. So knowing that, well, that doesn't make this neighborhood very friendly, I guess, because I'm going to have to jump from this neighborhood all the way to this one. And there's a good chance I'm going to hit the wrong note if you're having to do a big jump like that. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to have to probably find a different neighborhood to play this in. This is sort of just my logic for it. So instead of playing out of this E shape, I would come up, since I know that that's a note that I'm going to be playing, I'd figure out, okay, what neighborhood is that? So where do I have a G chord up in this position? Well, I've got the G using the C shape out of cage. And if I look at my major scale that's connected to the C shape, I've got it right there. So now that I know how to play the major scale in all these positions, this should be fairly easy. Now I just find the starting note again. Right? Now watch this. So those two notes are easy to get to now, instead of me trying to go like that. Now you could do it that way, but you're going to probably hit the wrong note doing that. Let's see. Right? So that was just all done by ear. I just picked it out. Now I did go through it before so I could do it a little cleaner. The first time you do it, you're going to hit some wrong notes, but you can work out that melody. And the more you, okay, so you do it a few times so that you can play it. Right? All right, so hopefully you've got that basic happy birthday melody down. Now let's take it to the next level and start improvising. So what else can we do to that melody? Now this is where I go back to that train line in the neighborhood analogy that I was just giving you. Because if you think about what's going on here, we're in the C neighborhood. This is the C shape out of Caged, right? So I know in this neighborhood I've got my C major scale. Right? So I've got that, but I've also got the major pentatonic scale pattern 4. It's right there in that C neighborhood. And I've also got the C minor pentatonic scale, what would that be? Pattern 3. That's in the same neighborhood. Now, what that means is I've got all those parameters to work with as well. So if I want to improvise, I can start to throw in other licks from familiar scales that I already know and familiar patterns. Hopefully that's starting to make sense. Even if you can't do it yet, you're starting to get how it works. And so, going back to this melody, here's what I came up with. Let's start with that. So we're going to start with the 7th fret 3rd string, go up to the 9th fret 3rd string, and then walk it down. 8, 7. Now what happened there? That's called chromatics. So chromatics just means you're filling in the gaps in between. So those would be your notes in the scale, right? But you can fill in the one in between. As long as you do it quickly as a passing note, it works. And so you hear that a lot in old swing stuff. And so that's where I got that. I came up to this note, which is in the melody, 8th fret 2nd string, and then slid into the 7th fret 2nd string. Just a subtle thing like sliding in makes it sound jazzier. Right? Okay, so then I went. Now that's going back to the chromatic thing. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just sort of noodling around the melody. So that's 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're using all 4 fingers. And then you come to the 7th fret 2nd string. And then back to the 10th fret 3rd string. 9th fret, 7th fret. So you have, and then you land on that 9th fret 3rd string. Now I know some of you are going, how in the heck did you get that out of Happy Birthday? Well, it just sort of came out. I mean, it just by messing around with the chromatic thing. I'd already done the chromatic thing there, and I was thinking, well, I'm going to do another chromatic thing just to work that into a lesson. And I was kind of going up and down chromatically, and I don't know, I just sort of landed on that. So then you go to that, to get back into the melody, you go to the 8th fret 2nd string, 7th fret 3rd string. Okay, from the beginning. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're gonna go. Now that's the same, right? We come up to that 10th fret 1st string, 7th fret 1st string, 8th fret 2nd string. And then watch this. Now that's a little bluesy version where I'm sliding from that 10th fret 2nd string up to the 11th fret, back to the 10th fret, back to the 8th fret. Why did I go there? Well, I knew my major pentatonic scale, pattern 4. Was right there, and I knew if I do a half bend right there, I get into that bluesy sound. And so I was just kind of doing that, but instead of bending it, I played it like that. Now this lick is really fun and very cool, and that's how I ended it. Now I don't know where I got that. I think that is a Charlie Christian lick. So what I'm doing there is I'm playing this. It's really an E minor chord, right? But if you play an E minor chord over a G, you have a G6. And so I've covered that in other lessons. You've got your 6 and your 9, right? So you can work in that minor triad. So in this case, it would be the relative minor of G. So the relative minor of G is E. So if I play an E minor triad, when there's a G chord being played underneath it, then it sounds like a G6. So that's what I did. That's a stair step. 7th fret 1st string, 8th fret 2nd string, 9th fret 3rd string. Slid in on that 1st string, 2, 3. And then there's that chromatic walk down, 8, 7 on the 3rd string. Back to the 9th fret 3rd string, 8th fret 2nd string. Then you come up here with your pinky to the 10th fret 2nd string. And then you land on that 8th fret 2nd string. Now that whole lick is taking advantage of, I think they call this encircling, where your note, your target note is that. You play one note below it, and then you play one note above it, but those notes that you're playing above and below are not directly above and below, they're notes in the major scale. So if that's the end goal, you're going to play one note below it in the major scale, one note above it in the major scale. So you have, you can come down here and go, hear it? So anyway, you can look that up. It's called, I think it's called encircling a note, but that's the basic premise is you go one step below it, one step above it, within the major scale, and then you land on it. You're kind of encircling that note or targeting it that way. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, so hopefully you've got that. Now we're going to play through the cycle again, but we're just going to switch into a different position. So instead of the C position, we're going to go to the A position. There's your G chord playing, using the A shape. So now I'm going to play the same melody up here just to give you some variety. So you got that 12th fret 4th string to the 9th fret 3rd string. And look at this. So when I'm playing that 9th fret 4th string, with my pinky, I can come up here and play strings 2 and 3 on that 12th fret as well. And what's going on there? That's your G chord, right? That's just the A chord shape. I'm just playing that part of it. So always picture your chords if you can and go into them. And then I came into this chord, picturing the chords, because it goes from the 1 to the 5 chord, so it goes from the G to the D. So there's your D chord using the E shape. And then another bluesy lick. To play that, I'm going to come up to the 12th fret, to the 10th fret, 12th, 13th. And what am I doing there? I'm going into minor pentatonic scale, pattern 4 for G. Right? Because I'm in this neighborhood. I've got the major scale, I've got the minor pentatonic scale. That's the power of knowing these neighborhoods. So after that, I'm going to slide into the 12th fret 2nd string, 12th fret 3rd string. Again, I'm just picturing that G chord. And then back to the 9th fret 3rd string, 12th fret 4th string. And then I let my finger bar there so I can hit strings 2 and 3. So all together from the beginning of the second half. All right, and then I do this walk down. So, well, I walk up first. So 12th fret 4th string, 9th fret 3rd string, 11th fret 3rd string, and then this is the walk down. Okay, and to do that, 12th fret, strings 2 and 3, that's just part of the G chord. We're going to walk that down 2 fret, which will be strings 2 and 3 on the 10th fret. So we have 12, 10, and then I'm going to go index finger on the 8th fret, 2nd string, middle finger on the 9th fret, 3rd string. And then we're going to play a bar there on the 8th fret, strings 2 and 3. So all together that's... Now what's going on there? Well, I was thinking about a bass part. Sometimes I do this. I think like a bass player. So it's playing like a little bass walk down that would go. that kind of thing. You can hear those. You know these things. You know walk downs like that because you've heard bass players do them. Now obviously it would be much lower octave on a bass, but I hear guitar players mimicking that sometimes. So you have right? That kind of corny stuff. But I was kind of going for that anyway. I could hear some kind of little walk down. Now I did not just improvise this. I had to work out the harmony to it. So, and really, if you look at the chords, that's a G, F, C, C minor, and then I went right into pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. Slide into strings 1 and 2 on the 3rd fret, and then 2 and 3 on the 5th fret, and then a little hammer on there between the 3rd and 4th fret on the 3rd string, back to the 5th fret, back to that hammer on. Last note would be the 5th fret 4th string. All right, let's go through that second half one more time. All right, so hopefully that's giving you some ideas for how you can improvise around basic melody. And a lot of my job is just to empower you. And I know that sounds super corny, but it's true. You know, a lot of it is you just need to hear somebody else tell you that you can do this. And I'm telling you, this stuff is not, it's not super difficult if you sit down slowly and you just take the major scale. You have all of the parameters now. You have the same parameters that any great jazz guitar player or blues guitar player, whatever your style is, you have the same parameters that they do. You have a guitar, you know the scales now, you have the knowledge. Now you just have to sit down and just work it out. And so a lot of it is just sitting and doing that. So for me to just improvise Happy Birthday like that, I had to work on it a little bit. I mean, it's a simple melody, yes, but it's, you know, to get it into something that sounded cool, I had to do it several times and really, you know, mess around with it quite a bit. So you can do this too. That's my point. All right, I hope that you've enjoyed this week's lesson, and I'll see you next week for something new.